Hello, hello. Welcome to Lead Taken. Hello, hello. I'm Mika here at Lead Taken. I talk all things witchy, craft related, law of attraction, manifesting, esoteric, and everything else in between. I don't see anybody here yet, but I'm going to just jump into it so you can catch it on a replay. Welcome to the channel. And welcome back if you've been here before. Today, we're talking about spirits and pop culture. One of my favorite topics, actually. I like talking about pop culture stuff. It's fun, and I want it fun. I need fun right now. I'm going through it. I hurt my back. So if you see this, I got a heating pad on. So that has altered the quality of my life for this last week or so. Made me very dependent on others, which I don't like, because I'm a get up and go kind of person, and do what I want. So yeah, I'm going through it a little bit, but it's getting better. So hi, Christopher John. But yeah, I'm better now. But yeah, I want to have a little fun. Things been heavy. I've talked about the losing, my grandmother passing, and it's just been, we haven't had anybody very close to us in our family in a while pass away. So you know, I guess I'm out of practice on how to grieve. So I just want my mommy, to be honest with you. I just want to go be with my mom in Jersey or her be here with me. I think that's what make me feel better. But that's not happening today. So we're gonna have a fun conversation about um pop spirits and pop culture, what they get right and wrong, because we need some fun. And also the state of the world and everything else in the Nazi regime. Anyway, moving on. So now that we're like deep into spooky season, I thought it'd be fun and maybe a little educational too, right? To break down what pop culture gets right about spirits and what it gets completely 100% wrong. As witches, spirit work isn't entertainment to us. It's I like to say it's spiritual technology, but pop culture shapes how the world sees magic, right? And sometimes it actually gets closer to the truth than people think. Hi, Sunflower and Thistle. Good evening, afternoon for me. So let's all settle and grab your water, your tea, or whatever you got, and let's get into it. So, how pop culture defines spirits? Let's talk about that. So, when we say spirits, most people picture a ghost in a haunted house or something jumping out of a mirror. Um, so movies like The Conjuring or Insidious, The Sixth Sense, or even like Ghostbusters shape that image. I just picked some random movies, like horror, ghost related. But in the craft, we know spirit is a huge word. It can mean ancestors, elementals, land spirits, thought forms. I speak of that, or divine beings. Pop culture tends to mash all of that together in one messy category, and it's like the dead people who scare you. That's the category, and that's not always wrong, but it's not really the full story either. So I do have a question for everybody. What was the first movie or show, TV show or whatever, that made you believe in ghosts or scared you about them? Let me know in the chat. So what was the first movie or show that made you believe in ghosts? I can tell you it was the Poltergeist for me. It was the Poltergeist. That movie scared the bejeebus out of me and I wasn't that young, but it spooked me. The Poltergeist, 100%. I love the first Conjuring movie. Then I learned about the Warrens. It felt icky. Ooh, okay. Ghostbusters for you. Ghostbusters, you know what? It could have been Ghostbusters. Dang. No, it was Poltergeist. Poltergeist was more deadly to me because it was like, oh, no, Carol Ann. And I watched it more than once, not because I wanted to, because others did. But anyway, that movie spooked me. The ghost thing, the poltergeist, and all that coming through the TV. Hello, I watch TV. It could really get me. um, So what pop culture gets right? So let's start with the good stuff, right? We're keeping it light, we're keeping it fun. There's enough heaviness. You can come here for 2 seconds, especially if you're witchy inclined, and we just gonna have a little fun time. So let's talk about the stuff um, they get right, because I do believe some creators really do their homework. So spirits respond to energy. Most movies show that emotions feed activity: fear, grief, anger. That is true. Spirits move through emotional current. If you're chaotic, your space will feel chaotic. I mean, that's kind of like energy magic 101. If you come, like, you ever be in a room and everything was chill, maybe, you just sitting there and there's other people in the room. It was just a comfortable vibe, nothing neutral. And, your toddler wakes up from a nap and they just come in, they had a bad nap and they come in there on some, it's not even a crime, they just chaotic, just doing stuff. Yeah, the whole I gave a simple example, but the whole room changes. Is kind of like that. And now you feel chaotic. You was chill, you was neutral, you were just having a nice time, and now you're not. I think that's how they like it, the toddlers. Anyway, moving on. So the dead want to be acknowledged. So in the Sixth Sense, the ghosts wanted to be seen, right? So, I mean, in a way, I think that's sort of accurate. Unsettled spirits often want recognition, but not your fear. That's why ancestral altars and offerings work. Attention brings resolution. Did anybody ever see the movie Coco? First of all, it would not be a good time for me to watch that right now because I think I would probably cry my eyes out, dealing with grief right now. But in the movie Coco, which is profound, I think that is an exceptional movie to talk about death with children, and honestly for adults to kind of settle how you feel about it. Um, Ultimately, you want to venerate your ancestors. You don't want them to be forgotten. So it's interesting because we always saw this, most of us, like your parents, your great grandparents, things like that, they would have pictures on the wall of everybody. People who come and go on, your uncle that served in the military in a war you were not here for. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you saw all these pictures of people, and that is like a way of venerating them, for some, especially for the and it was usually women, um older women, who will point out and they will tell you, that's uncle so and so, he did such and such, this is so and so. Like, I know people who were like that. Like, they will tell, my grandma was like that. She would have pictures of every, a wall of pictures, and she'd tell you, and if you asked about it, she would tell you. Or maybe if you didn't ask, she still might tell you. But anyway, um yeah, so just recognition, that's the point. And we, a lot of us, because of uh well, it's easy just to say religion, but specific religions uh are very uncomfortable with setting up an altar or doing any offering work or any real acknowledgement of ancestors. um yeah, so if you pay attention, maybe you'll get some resolution to your issues. I have had wonderful success with working with my ancestors. I did not always do ancestor veneration, not because I was against, or I was just ill equipped to even do it, because I was indoctrinated in living in that dogmatic religion growing up. So when I came out, initially I felt like I was just atheist. And then after that, I did get into Wicca. And then I realized deity work is really not for me. And I never really got around to doing ancestor veneration. I didn't know where to fit it, because I really didn't know what am I doing? What am like, I don't know. Like, most of the people at that point, I felt like, well, almost everybody I know that I'm related to is alive. And I don't know them. Like, I needed like 101 back in the day on this topic. And that's what took so long. And then they showed me. And we've been, like this ever since. But they showed me, they came to me, and that's how. And I'm grateful that I had the presence of mind and discernment to understand who they were. Well, they told me to, but to accept it. So spiritual boundaries matter. So Insidious got this one right. Opening portals without grounding is dangerous. Actually, any movie is. I'm just picking out because I didn't. I'm going by what I was told about that one because I couldn't handle it. Opening portals without grounding is dangerous. We all agree on that, right? Witches call that portal magic or doorway magic, right? And if you open one, you should know how to close it. It's the same as casting a circle. You cast the circle and then you close the circle in the end. Um, to me, that's spiritual hygiene in a way. When you're doing work, now I can speak on this specifically because I refer to myself as a cottage witch. So I work with house spirits. So I'm doing work. I work with my coven. I work by myself. I'm, doing different types of work in a house, right? Clearly, there's energy I'm putting out here, different types of energy, depending on the work, plus just the way I'm feeling, my emotions, and all that sort of stuff. So that's why I like to do cleansings around the home. That's why I like a good simmer pot to bring a certain energy. I introduce it. It's not necessarily about eradicating all energy, negative energy, because I don't feel like it's negative. It just feels like a chaotic energy in the house sometimes from all the different types of work that I'm doing. So I like a simmer pot. I like an incense. I like to burn my own personal, herbal blends to bring in energy that is cleansing and kind of just neutralizes and mellow things out, not necessarily get rid of everything. I don't burn sage very often, and I don't burn Palo Santo very often. Those are kind of, when I first got here, I did because I felt like I needed to be more heavy handed in my cleansing. But as you live here, and I'm careful about opening and closing circles after a ritual. You do certain things to close out, especially if you're working alone. And that's how you kind of keep that down. If you are working at an altar can be a portal. I said can be because it depends on what you doing with that altar. How do you use your altar? Do you even use your altar? But it can be a portal. And I'm not a believer that something's going to come through that you don't want. It is if you leave the door open and invite it in. But most of us are working probably with a specific goddess or god or deity or whatever, ancestor, spirit. um, and you most likely have that relationship, so they wouldn't let anything else come through. You're already protected. I get that question a lot when I'm helping new people, by the way. What if I contact something else? And I always say, there are people like myself and many others who have intentionally tried to contact something else, and it didn't work. If you think it's that simple, like, what do you mean, like some sort of like demonic force? I always say that I would have so many demons on my payroll. Anyway, moving on. Houses remember. So haunted houses, the haunted house trope, are sort of spot on in a way, one way. Energy imprints linger. A home can hold arguments, it can hold laughter, it can hold grief, even after you move out. That's why we cleanse the home. Like you might use smoke and salt, sound, so forth. I like to use all those things, by the way. I'll do the little salt water in the corner. Yeah, I'll do that sometimes still. Sometimes the basics are fun and accessible. And I find when things are enjoyable, I'm saying fun, but when things are enjoyable as an activity, I like doing it, which means I will be consistently doing it. So doing put a little salt in your water and just put your hand in the thing and sprinkle in the corners. That's a simple thing to do. As long as your intention is there, you know what I mean? Like, you could keep it simple. You don't have to do this. And also, I do question the people who are doing so much. What's in your house? What kind of energy? And I think You're putting a band-aid on a bigger issue. If you have to do all this extra cleansing in your house, like, you haven't befriended the spirits. I have spirits in my house. Things move, things happen. I hear sounds, little voice things and stuff like that. Me and my daughter, we hear it. I guess one would say we live in a haunted place, but I mean, befriend them. So now we're going to talk about what pop culture gets wrong. What do they get wrong? All right. What Hollywood butchers? Spirits are not automatically evil. This is the number one. Movies love the demonic haunting angle, but not every spirit is out to possess you or throw chairs. Most hauntings are like energetic echoes, not exorcisms waiting to happen. Witches don't cast out. We communicate, which is my point. Why not let them work with you? Why are you trying to cast them out? Number two, you can't fix every spirit with Latin and a Bible. Oh my God. Now, I'm a fan of Supernatural and they have demons in it, but it does bug me. Actually, any show, it's always Latin, but no disrespect to the church. Well, today. But the assumption that only priests can cleanse energy is like seriously false. Energy responds to, in some capacity, authority, not religion. So your words, your intent, your tools, they work because you do. So me with the salt water, it, even though it seems, pretty simple and not a big deal, I'm doing it with a certain intention. I'm holding authority. This is my home. I'm protecting my home. I have a right to do this. I decide, I set boundaries. You see what I'm saying? That's what I mean by authority. Authority doesn't necessarily mean aggression. Number three, spirits don't look like CGI. They don't look like CGI, y'all. You won't usually see a translucent person in 4K. Spirit contact feels like, it can feel like pressure changes, chills. I got that. That happened. Flickers of movement, like the thing out your eye, or a sudden intuition, which is a very common thing. Sudden intuition, but it's never special effects. For years, and I've talked about it often on here, about the whispers that I would hear, the little whispers, and I was like, is it my higher self? Is it my intuition? Is it spirit? But I would get like thought forms that just pop in. It wasn't something I thought about. It just was in my mind. And then it was usually either a message or omen or some sort of instruction or guidance, and or an outcome. And I was told ahead of time. So I do believe it was spirit, and I'm using it as the big word spirit. um, but I was being taught, yeah, I do feel like spirit was talking to me. In that time, there was a spirit talking to me, but in a way that they can talk to me. Four, which is the last one. Remember, we're going over what pop culture gets wrong. I got my notes here because I will stray. Possession is rare. True spirit attachment does exist. I've survived it, but a full takeover possession is very rare and often more psychological than supernatural. Real witches, in my opinion, focus on energetic hygiene, what I talked about, not horror movie panic, which leads me to another conversation on this. So, when we're talking about possession and all that sort of stuff, a lot of people I feel are still dealing with religious psychosis from Christianity. They come into paganism. We'll just say maybe they don't call themselves a witch because I got people who are hoodoo and so forth. But to me, which is tough, when you still want to keep that bridge into the Bible, into Christianity, you're still allowing the dogma of that, the inaccuracies of that religion, to infiltrate your spiritual system. I do hoodoo as well. I also practice hoodoo, but I do what I refer to as modern hoodoo. And I feel that I prefer to work more with the roots themselves. And I call on whatever deity, but mostly ancestor work. So my hoodoo practice is more ancestral root work and nothing to do with Bible scriptures or anything like that. Because ultimately, my ancestors was doing a version of spirituality that they had to do because of their circumstances. Well, when you know better, you can do better. And ultimately, the people I come from, majority of us, as each generation is born, we always want them to be better. Being better that's not a negative. Do I think I'm better than my ancestors? Well, they do, because they told me. They want me to be better. They want me to branch out. They want me to know more and do more than what they could do. It's not that because they didn't know. No, they couldn't. They could be killed. You know what I mean? Um, I don't understand, but then again, I don't understand people who walks around with a Jesus piece. I don't get that either. Like, why do you want to wear? So you really believe in this Jesus character, Messiah? And I'm trying to find the right words, Messiah, and he was nailed to a cross as they did. Those were the times. Apparently, that's what I was told. He up on the cross. So you like, you know what? I'm gonna wear a cross to represent that. Why would you do? And it's so accepted. It's weird. It's odd to me. Anyway, I've been so far out of the Christian loop. I don't know anything about, like, I realized I was watching a podcast earlier, and the guy was talking about some of this stuff. And he was like, yeah, I don't know scripture like by memorization, but I know this. And I was like, I don't know anything. I don't know scripture. Hi, Debbie's witchy vlog. Hey, I don't know any of that. I realize I don't. And I think because of the religious overtones in Hollywood and so forth, that's why it's always kind of wrong. A lot of the stuff in this extra. I mean, of course, it's a movie. You want to make it a bigger impact and things like that. But like the Latin and the Bible thing sends me every time. But even my favorite shows, they speak in Latin. Um, Whenever they're dealing with, a wayward spirit. I don't know. This is a thing that bugs me. But so yeah, if a door slams in your kitchen, it's more likely a draft than a demon. That's happened to me recently. My door shut. It just slammed here. It was the intake, it was the air coming on, and I had a window crack. Boom, door slam. It wasn't a ghost, a spirit, or a demon. However, if it keeps happening and it's like 3:33 a.m., I mean, you might want to look into that. Maybe bring out a little something. Check your wards. See what's going on around. Strengthen your wards in your house at that point. I mean, is that not a fair assessment if that happens? I mean, if it's consistently happening like that, that's a different conversation. Again, I'm not going to be afraid. I talk to spirit. I commune with spirit. I revere spirit. I am not afraid. How do you get to this place of not being afraid? By doing. Walk your talk. Be the witch that you claim that you are. Yeah, that's how. You just walk your talk. Debbie's witchy vlog says, that being said, my cousins had to completely move and rebuild their house because of poltergeist activity. It was freaky. See, here's the thing about it. I know a lot of people get really nervous about that sort of stuff, a presence, an unwanted presence. But I mean, again, I don't know if they were practitioners, probably not. But like, I mean, I know I live in a haunted house. There are spirits here. If you stay here long enough, you'll notice, you'll feel it. There's definitely an energy here. But honestly, I feel like it's tied because this is newer construction. It's the land itself. It's not the physical structure of the home. It's the land itself. But I've had these inner well, I'm gonna say experience, not interactions, experiences traveling throughout this area here in Arizona. They were Christians. Okay. And that's the thing. It's like, man, you're blindsiding yourself. Like if you just connect to the, like you could commune. I feel for them that they and it's just lack of knowledge. They don't know. And everybody thinks priests, and it's like, no. Sorry about them. Hopefully they live in a nicer place. But I do have a question. What's the worst or most unrealistic ghost scene you've ever seen in a movie? What's the worst or the most unrealistic ghost scene you've ever seen in a movie? I got a bunch. Okay, so I'm a big fan of The Ghost Whisperer. I went to go try to rewatch that show. First of all, why are they so angry all the time? because they're always mischievous, angry, and they're always confused. I'll get the confusion, but for the ones that have been dead for quite some time, like decades, and she's dealing with it, girl, what? Like, why would so all the ghosts are confused forever? Like, I don't know. I think it's unrealistic, but I realize they have to, create that element for the show. But I do. Ghost Whisperer is mine. Not every episode, but a good amount. Um, I haven't watched a lot of ghost movies lately, but yeah, that would be one. Um, so let's talk spirit work versus spirit entertainment, right? So pop culture glamorizes contact with spirits like seances, Ouija boards, ghost hunts. You'll see some stuff here on YouTube even. So what gets lost is the respect and consent part. So real spirit work is sacred. As someone who works with spirits, it's sacred work. It's not for thrills, and it's relationship building, hence the communicate, because every relationship you have to have what communication. If you're like me, if you're a cottage witch or something in that line, you probably experience spirit activity at home, as I mentioned before. So ancestral whispers, maybe in a kitchen, or a flickering candle when you speak their name. Um, I technically don't consider that haunting. To me, that's presence, and it's comforting and it's affirming. Um, makes I realize I'm not crazy after all, especially if somebody else is in the house and witnessing it. I'm not just not all in my head. I'm not crazy. So it is affirming. I like it. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily overly brave. It doesn't spook me. Nothing. It doesn't scare me. There was a time all of this like would rattle me a little bit, but it was coming from the religious overtones and the things I was still shedding. But yeah, we're good now. So if you ever want to safely engage with spirit energy, right? It's simple. There's more things you can do, but like the first thing is to ground first. You want to set clear boundaries. Only ancestors and guides of my highest good are welcome. That you say something along those lines. And again, end every session by closing your space and thanking them. It's not dramatic. To me, it's responsible magic and good spiritual hygiene, just doing those things. But I think these are like responsible things that you have to do. And sometimes I get ahead of myself, and I have to remember when I'm talking to someone else who is new to remind them about this sort of stuff. One, it calms your mind, especially if you're new to this. And these are just hard lessons I learned over the years. It calms your mind that you close the circle or you thank them and you ended it. When you're first getting into to practicing magic or witchcraft, I feel like there's so much fear, even if you weren't like religiously indoctrinated, a lot, because the media does such a good job, the movies and all that, of making of making you afraid, and being in fear about it. So Do the things that help you stay focused in your mind. So close out, always like have a word, create something. Maybe you want to do like a hand gesture at the end of a ritual, a namaste. I don't know. Pick something and do it. I'm going to give you the easiest thing to do. Just pick something to do it. So, representation matters. So, let's talk Black and folk spirit traditions. All right. Another thing pop culture really gets right is the spiritual lens of Black, Indigenous, and other folk traditions. So the spirit world isn't just spooky for us. It's not, well, some of it I don't think it's spooky at all, but it's familial, right? It's survival. It's wisdom passed through dreams. So, like hoodoo, root work, African diasporic practices don't treat spirits as demons or as monsters. We treat them as elders, guides, and witnesses. So, when I watch movies that only show angry white Victorian ghosts, and I found it's close to that with my thumbnail, I sort of laugh because our ancestors would be loud and loving too. They don't always haunt. Sometimes they bless, and that's the beauty in spirit work. So, what do spirits in pop culture get right? The veil is thin, that energy lingers, and that intention matters. And what do they get wrong? That fear is the only response, that we're powerless without a priest, that the unseen is evil. So as witches, we do know better, right? We live in relationship with the spirit, relationship, not as victims. I like to say as co-creators. So the next time you watch a scary movie, enjoy those jump scares, but remember, real magic isn't about terror. It's about connection. Um, yeah, don't you can, I mean, it's Halloween time, people are watching the scary movies, but like remember that. Also, as an aside, which I didn't note, but look at, especially if they're doing any sort of witchcraft in it, see what you can kind of glean from that. See if you can take something and add it to your pop cultural magic section of your book of shadows. Because they might have a chant that resonates with you, or they might have a display or something and you see certain things you're like, I should really look into that. Sometimes you can get ideas. Christopher John says, my show on YouTube is an act of magic and I didn't realize it. Oh, really? Okay. I gotta check you out. I have to check you out to see what you're talking about. And so, yeah, that's the video. That's the list. That's everything. Thank you all for coming here and hanging out with me. I'm doing my best to be. I'm feeling off. I wouldn't say I'm super sad. I feel blah. I was on a happy coming into Samhain, and I get excited. It's my favorite time of year. Um, and I just kind of feel blah. And I can be moved from this space. That's why I said, let me talk about some fun today. Um, and I love talking about witchcraft, so that helps. But I want to get back to kind of how I was. And I don't know if I can, but at least a piece of that again, of my excitement. Samhain is Friday, Halloween is Friday, and today is Wednesday. And I don't even have candy. Kids will come. Like, I am just so out of the loop. Mika, oh no, it's Mika. Thank you though. Is it just, I know what's my deal, but honestly, if it wasn't that, the state of the world is another issue. But anyway, I'm going to channel this, and I decided I'm celebrating Samhain for an entire week, additional week. So I'm doing Samhain, Day of the Dead, remembrance all the way into the next week to make up for grieving and kind of being thrown out. I'm not putting this on you. I'm just reimagining the dates, and I will continuously celebrate because I believe the veil will still very much be thin a week within the week after the day. So the first week in November, I'm still celebrating Halloween. Everything's staying up. I'm still in the vibes of Samhain. I'm still doing ancestral magic, all that sort of stuff. That's my solution. All right, so stay inspired, stay magical, and start taking some leaps. I know I am. All right, bye everybody. Like, subscribe, share, and all that other good stuff. Bye.